I see. So, you're the one who's been calling me about my car's extended warranty. Well, while I understand why you're doing it, I feel that it's kind of... I get what you're trying to say, but I'm not interested at the moment, so if you'll excuse... Get out of here. Get the hell out of here. Go, go, go. Turn your head and go that way. Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Just the Dumbest. I'm Hot Toddy. If you're not familiar with this show, what we do is we talk about some of the dumbest things that the world has to offer. People, incidences, laws, stuff, you name it. We talk about it right here on Just the Dumbest. I might be passing out soon, we're not sure. But anyway, this episode is no different. Seriously, there may be a blood clot in my brain from doing that. We'll see what happens. Anyway, this episode, we're going to talk about something that is not much of an issue now, but was a huge issue back in the early 20th century. This was during a time when we really didn't give a crap about safety measures and things like that, so we would just throw caution to the wind and make people do things without ever really understanding just how dangerous it was. And in this case, can you believe it? Women's beauty trends were some of the most dangerous things in the early 20th century. That is why this episode is called Just the Dumbest Killer Beauty Trends. Can you believe it? Beauty trends were some of the most dangerous things going on in the world during the early 20th century, although people did not know that. They thought they were doing the right thing to make themselves look beautiful or to have beautiful things, and it's all due to a little substance known as radium. Radium was discovered in the very early 20th century. We're talking the early 1900s, and when they discovered it, they said, hey, let's put this in everything imaginable. And one of the most popular incidences that came out of this was something known as the radium girls. You see, back in 1917, watch companies were creating new watches where the numbers would glow in the dark. That's something we still have today, but in that time it was a little different, as you might imagine. And would you like to know how they got those things painted with radium? This was done by young women, and they would just do it completely exposed to the radium. That's right, and a lot of them suffered from radium poisoning. A lot of them would end up having long-term effects from it, including glowing in the dark themselves. I'm not talking about the product. They themselves would glow in the dark, and a lot of them eventually died from this. And even after lawsuits were filed, nothing was really ever done with it, until eventually people were like, hey, let's stop poisoning people to create products. But yes, the radium girls, who were a very, well-known group of girls from U.S. history, well, world history at that rate, for using radium, getting exposed to it to a point where they actually died. All for a watch. Pale skin is a beautiful thing. I'm actually a fan of pale skin. I like tan skin, but there's something about somebody with pale skin that just makes you go, I like pale skin. So the ancient Greeks and Romans took to using moisturizers that consisted of white lead and mercury. Look, nowadays we shudder at the very idea of mixing lead and mercury into our bodies, but back then they didn't know any better, and they thought, hey, this is the cure right here. This is what makes you beautiful. Lead and mercury. Although the pale look was achieved, the heavy metals would eventually seep into their bloodstream. Oh, you don't say. It would seep into their skin and poison them to death. I don't even know how to get into this next thing, because it's just... it kind of makes me feel... Listen, I know there's fetishes out there, like if you want this stuff on you, but to put it in your mouth... Apparently there was in the ancient... What does it have? There was a time when urine mouthwash was a thing. Oh! Okay, hear me out. Apparently, in ancient Rome, this was all the rage. It was chic, and people wanted They wanted the scent of pee-pee in their mouth. We're talking the scent of the yellow gold liquidy that comes out your body. They wanted their breath to smell like pee. Smell like urine. But as you guessed, the urine, it's high in ammonia. You get that scent when you pee. It's pretty freaking rough. And ammonia doesn't kill you in this case, but it does make you feel a little sick. And by the way, urine, it's not a great smell. If I smell pee on your breath, we can't be friends. I'm sorry. Again, this is something that I feel like I shouldn't have to explain to you, but okay, fine. Here we go. Tapeworm dieting. That's right. And this took place, we've been talking about the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans. This took place also, like the Radium Girls, in the 1900s. People were using tapeworms on themselves in the 1900s. Why? Why are you doing this to yourselves? Hey, Khloe Kardashian, in just recent time, Khloe Kardashian was thinking about, was using it. I bet she pees in her mouth too. Naturally, using a tapeworm to diet causes a lot of digestive issues and makes a lot of people sick, even giving them meningitis and epilepsy. Don't put tapeworms in your body, you douche. Foot binding. Now this is something that is pretty common throughout history, most notably probably in Asian culture. They did this a lot back in ancient times. And historically speaking, it was banned within the last few years. I don't know exactly the amount of time, but foot binding has been around a lot longer than it should have been. If your feet were around 5 inches, your chances of getting married were slim to none. And they call people with foot fetishes today weird. But if your feet were 3 inches long, you had a better shot of getting married. So women whose feet were bigger than 3 inches would get them bound, and you can guess the rest. Killer beauty trends. Finally, we're going to talk about this incident. It goes far beyond people's personal beauty trends. Nay. It also moves into Hollywood, on Hollywood sets. Again, a lot of these things that we talked about took place in the early 1900s, and even makeup for movies were extremely dangerous. Just check out this TikTok video.
Margaret Hamilton also suffered from her toxic makeup that contained copper, but by the end of filming she had so much of it in her pores that her skin had a greenish tint for about 6 months after filming was over. The Wicked Witch wasn't the only one with makeup problems, because the Tin Man was played by 2 actors since the first one was almost killed by his makeup. Buddy Ebsen was the first actor to portray the Tin Man, and he was coated with an aluminum powder at least 12 times a day to keep his face shining for every take. But the application of the powder created an aluminum dust cloud around his face that he would inadvertently breathe in. He eventually had so much aluminum in his lungs that one day he suddenly stopped breathing and keeled over due to instant emphysema. Ebsen had to be rushed to the hospital where he spent 6 weeks recovering under an oxygen tent, and Jack Haley was hired as his replacement. Unfortunately, the deadly aluminum powder was swapped for what turned out to be a deadly aluminum paste, because when the paste accidentally got in Jack Haley's eyes, it caused an infection so bad that he had to be hospitalized for about a week in order to save his vision. The scarecrow face that Ray Bolger wore was partly made of a rubber prosthetic with a woven pattern to make it look like a burlap sack. But by the time filming had wrapped, the prosthetic had left a pattern of lines on his face that was so deep it took more than a year for his skin to heal.
The people at MGM Studios had no regard for these actors' health and safety, and gave them a lot of problems to deal with for at least a couple of years. If you had heard that today, people in Hollywood would be canceled for doing that, because you're not supposed to put people's lives in danger, especially for just the sake of a film. But you heard about how dangerous Margaret Hamilton's makeup was, and Buddy Ebsen, the poor man, almost died, and that's why he had to leave the movie. But that just gives you an idea of how much we really didn't care during that time period when it came to beauty products and what we put into our body. And yet, we have something that's perfectly safe to put in your body these days, and people won't do it. Humanity! And there you have it, some of the dumbest killer beauty trends. It's kind of scary, isn't it? And not just in terms of everyday beauty, but in Hollywood as well. Can you imagine if Hollywood was that careless when it came to actors nowadays? No, nobody can, because it's insane. But that was a thing back in the day. So there you have it, some of the killer beauty trends of the early 20th century. And with that in mind, that's going to do it for us on this episode. Make sure you follow the Superfuzz Videos page on YouTube. Of course, you're on YouTube right now, so make sure you like, click, subscribe, follow us, click the little bell, so that way you get the notifications whenever there's a new show right here on the Superfuzz page. You can also check out our merch shop. That's right, go get you some stuff. We've got all kinds of great products from all of our shows, including a Just the Dumbest shirt. So make sure you check that out. You can also follow Superfuzz on Twitter at Superfuzz Videos. Make sure you do it today. For Just the Dumbest, I'm Hot Toddy. Good night.